Shalom. I'm Rabbi Michael Panitz. I'm the rabbi of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia, speaking to you from the pulpit of our synagogue. At this time, I'd like to discuss with you the topic, boxes of transcendence, boxes of tragedy. The Hebrew word of the day, of the week, of the past 500 plus days is Aron. Aron has several meanings, all clustered around its definition, a structure or an item of furniture designed to contain objects. In modern Hebrew, Aron is a cupboard or closet. In the book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 10, the most famous Aron in the Bible is introduced. Quote, "They shall make an ark, Aron, of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits its length, and 1.5 cubits its width, and 1.5 cubits its height." The purpose of this carrying box is to contain the 2 tablets of the covenant. As presented in the Bible, God gave this instruction to Moses first, prior to any other instructions for the sacred ritual objects that would comprise the portable sanctuary. God's forwarding address in the midst of the Israelite camp and community. The rabbis drew important lessons from that priority. Quote, "Just as the Torah came before everything else, so in the making of the tabernacle, the ark came first, before all the other articles of furniture. Just as the light came first before all other objects of creation, so too in the case of the tabernacle. The Torah, which is called light, as it is written, Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23, for the commandment is a lamp, and the Torah is a light. Its components preceded all the other articles of furniture." For us, the rabbinic commentaries are a given, a part of the large corpus of oral Torah to be studied and savored. We would do well to remember that, like all art, they were once new. What motivated the rabbis to create this last comment? Clearly, they were impressed that in the entire complex of instructions for building and furnishing a tabernacle, this item came first. By engaging in one of their standard methods, association, the rabbis connected several famous firsts together: light, Torah, and this cask. Now let's go a step deeper. We understand the how of the composition of this rabbinic comment. Let's try to plumb the question, why? Why did the rabbis want the Aron to be highlighted in this way? I believe that the answer to that question gets to the heart of monotheism, the essence of where Judaism differed from all the religious strivings of its day. Since long before the days of the Bible, people had expressed their yearning to be in relationship with the divine by the plastic arts. They created 2- and 3-dimensional representations of the transcendent. The Bible categorically forbids this activity, so central to pagan piety. Quote, "Make for yourselves no carved image and no likeness." Exodus chapter 20, verse 4. With idols prohibited, what is left then to concretize our relationship with our source, creator, and matrix to which we return? The Jewish answer is words. more specifically, God's words of instruction. And the Hebrew for that is Torah. The ark, therefore, was a container, as other religions had containers for their divine representations. But in the Israelite ark, there were no statues, there were no paintings, there were only words, remembered as God's very own utterances, memorialized on stone tablets. This unique notion that the God box contains not idols, but something more ethereal, also accounts for the insistence in the book of Deuteronomy that God's, quote, name is present in the sacred structures that we build. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 11. It will be the place that the Lord your God will choose in which to make God's name dwell. There shall you bring all that I charge you. No statue of the God of Israel is in residence in the holy temple. Only the once portable ark with the sacred words inside. That is how God's name is placed in the holiest of holy places. The tablets memorializing the utterance beginning with the name of God. Anochi Adonai Elohecha. I am the Lord your God. Exodus chapter 20, verse 2. King Solomon had his pluses and his minuses, according to biblical authors. His greatest plus was remembering what an Israelite temple is and is not. In writing to King Hiram of Tzor, Tyre, modern-day Lebanon, to obtain cypress wood for the temple he meant to build, Solomon specified that the new building will be to, quote, house the name of the Lord my God. 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 19. At its most sublime, the Aron and its own outer housing from the days of Solomon until the Babylonian destruction was a structure to house the Word, the sacred Word that is as close as our tradition allows to an image of God. However, and my students know that I delight in showing where Judaism has several views on a subject, several voices in its choir, several hues in its spectrum. Judaism has another thought on this point, one that is every bit as authentic as its insistence on the inadequacy and illegitimacy of any physical representation of the divine. The other side of the coin is the special relationship of God and humans. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Let us create humanity in our image. And the next verse, stating that God actualized this intention. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. God created the human in the divine image. Male and female did God create them. While God is not an invisible humanoid in the consensus of Jewish thought, there is something special about humanity as God's partner. Quote, the human spirit is the lamp of the Lord. Proverbs 20, verse 27. All of creation obeys God's natural laws, and indeed does so without any conscious decision. But the dignity and uniqueness of the human is that we can say yes to God and obey God's moral laws. This leads us to the second biblical use of the term aron, which is coffin. The book of Genesis ends with a cliffhanger, giving us a problem in need of resolution. Quote, Joseph was put in an aron, in a coffin, in Egypt. It is a cliffhanger because it cannot be the ultimate disposition of the mortal remains of Joseph. He made his family swear that when God would allow them to leave Egypt, they would take his remains to Canaan. We know that during the Exodus, Moses began to fulfill Joseph's dying charge. Quote, Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had solemnly made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely single you out, and you shall take up my bones with you from here. Exodus chapter 13, verse 19. Finally, Joseph was brought home and was buried in the land of Israel in his own tribal territory. Book of Joshua, chapter 24, verse 32. The bones of Joseph, which the Israelites had brought up from Egypt, were buried in Shechem, in the patrimony of the house of Joseph. Both senses of the word Aron, God box and coffin, are brought together in Jewish consciousness at this very moment. In the Torah, we read about the Aron, the Ark of the Covenant, and in the Jewish world, we witness the repeated sadness of the burial of the murdered victims of Hamas, whose bodies have only just been released. The first Aron is a box of transcendence, the second a box of tragedy. To the ranks of Israel's martyrs, the names of Oded Lifshitz, Shiri Bibas, and her two young sons, Ariel and Kefir, are now added. The victims, ranging in age from 83 years to just 9 months, span the generations of victims of the jihadist butchers of Hamas. Like the murdered Abel, the voices of their blood shout from the earth, demanding a reckoning. How does Israel go on from here? How do we go on from here? How does a civilized world go on from here? I offer this thought as a tiny bit of consolation. In the Aron, traveling through the wilderness of Sinai on the way to the Promised Land, rested not only the 2 tablets of the covenant, but also the fragments of the earlier ones, shattered by Moses when the Israelites worshipped the golden calf. Both sets of tablets, not only the evidence of our people at its worst, but also the hopeful sign of its renewed journey through time in relationship with God, were in that Aron. In every Aron that we are burying this week, there is the dramatic reproach to the leaders of the state of Israel who disregarded and misinterpreted the signs of the imminent Hamas attack in the weeks, days, and hours leading up to the October 7th atrocities. There's also the irrevocable condemnation of Hamas, the disqualification of their claim to be any legitimate authority, now or in the future. But there is also the defiant hope that, quote, we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. The dead we are burying are the shattered remains of what once housed the image of God. Let it be so that, quote, from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause represented by the Israeli flags draping the Aron of each of its victims, that we will be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem, living at last in peace. Amen.